Welcome back to Heber Valley Life Podcast, where we explore the people, ideas, and decisions shaping our life in our valley. I'm Rachel Kahler, Executive Director of the Community Alliance for Main Street, and this is part 2 of a conversation with Clayton Vance. Hopefully you've listened to part 1. If you've not, I encourage you to do so. We are diving into some of the really difficult decisions and discussions that are happening here in Heber Valley, specifically around housing. And we talked about code, land use, urban sprawl, ruralness. Clayton, I want to just jump right into where we left off. And that was a conversation around subdivisions, different types of housing. Specifically, let's talk about this idea of the missing middle.
Okay.
And you were starting to draw for me about the missing middle. Even more importantly, though, I believe that within the Heber Valley, we have to look at the Heber Valley as a whole. We've got to recognize that we have mountain communities such as Red Ledges.
Mm-hmm.
We have Blue Sage coming on.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the J Spa around Jordanelle Ridge, or up around Jordanelle. We have Jordanelle Ridge, which has 5,000 units of housing coming. But there's this push for more affordable housing. And yet it just doesn't seem like there's a solution for that. Do you have the solution?
I wish I had here's your bulletproof solution. Boom, just apply this, implement it, and voila, everything will be happy. It's just it's the nature of how development goes today. Yeah. It has to do with what we've currently zoned, right? So what we've done is we've taken the pizza and we've extracted all the ingredients from the pizza, and you now have to eat your pepperoni individually. You have to eat your cheese over here and eat your dough over here. If you want everything, the whole pizza, it's like, okay, what are all the elements that actually make the pizza the pizza? Mm-hmm. It's the pepperoni, the cheese, and the sauce, and the all ingredients. And they're all mixed in together. Yeah. And so when you begin to separate into an R1, an R2, an R3, and R this.
Okay, before we go into those details, though, R1 is single family.
Yeah. And so
R2 is a little bit more dense. Townhomes, twin homes. R3 is when we're talking density.
Yeah. And every municipality will do this slightly different in terms of their zoning. And so you'll have like R1, 10,000, R1, quarry, or R1. And so they get into even more microscopic kind of divisions and everything.
But I want the listeners to understand why those numbers mean something. And even A20. Yeah. So when we talk about the North Fields, it's one building, 20 acres.
Yeah.
I happen to grow up on a 5-acre lot. And I don't know if that will ever exist in the future in this valley because of the cost of the infrastructure on that type of building.
Yeah. If you have the right money, you can do it, right? But once again, that's not very affordable. Right. So we have these numbers, and what that does is that's beginning to separate different parts of the ingredients into different parts of the pizza.
Yeah.
And the way cities used to look historically is you'd have the downtown core with all of your commercial stuff because you didn't have an automobile, so you had to get there. And then what was the next block over? What were the houses? What they look like the next block over from downtown? They were the biggest houses historically. Yeah. Why? Because the business owners and the guys who own the shops wanted to be close to their shops. And then you'd have secondary streets that would have much smaller lots. And so within a single block in a downtown historic core, you would have commercial, you would have 1-acre lots or half-acre lots and 10,000 square foot lots and 5,000 square foot lots, all on a single block.
Right.
And so, but the streets were the composition. It wasn't the composition of the block. It was the street composition. And so you would have different zones that would bisect different lots, but they didn't have zones back then because they were doing it based on what they needed.
And what resources they had available. How many children they had, if they were farmers, if they were bakers. Yeah.
And so if you think about new development in the same way, that when people come and ask, hey, can you design this urban design or this city or this whatever? I look at it from that frame of reference. I'm first determining what's my origin, what's my destination, how am I getting from here to there, how many ways can I get from here to there? What's the architecture look like from here to there? Where should I put the highest density and where should I put the lowest density? And then that begins to, because I sincerely, fundamentally believe it. I know most people will completely disagree with me, but I fundamentally believe that you should have an integration of multiple housing types and lot sizes within the same neighborhood.
But that has not been the case historically in Heber.
It was historically the case until we started doing subdivisions, until Euclidean zoning happened in the 1940s or 30s, whatever it was. And so once regular zoning, modern zoning, we'll call it modern zoning, once that came up, then we just did it per modern zoning. And that's what all of us know, because that's our lifetime and our parents' lifetime. Mm-hmm. If you're a Gen Xer, it's yours and your parents' lifetime of how development happened. And what the new style stuff has been, new urbanism was a trend and is still a trend, and traditional town planning are things that are trying to recapture the essence of how we used to live, how communities used to be developed that we still love, because we've realized that, the reality, and I hate to say it, but you've got to be honest with yourselves, zoning is the final legalized segregation method that we have. And it's a segregation by economics. The rich people live here. The not so rich people live over here. That's what it is.
Wow. You're just going to put it out there. But I want to talk about real life, what we see in the Heber Valley, because I don't disagree, but I think it wasn't intentional by city.
No, of course it's not. You don't know what you're getting.
But I think let's look at some real projects. So here, Old Town, we've got, it built up from the 1865 on. Midway was primarily farming and milking, a lot of dairy farms. And then as we have grown, the apartment complexes were put at the edges.
Yeah.
And yet good design would be in
the middle or in the town core.
But we didn't start out that way.
No, because we already had the car and we already had the zoning, and we're already like, well, we don't want the density. Well, where do we put the density? And everyone's like, let's put it over there. That'll be fine. And so we concentrate a certain socioeconomic class in certain zones that are in the areas that seem the least intrusive into our lifestyles. That's just what we've done. And is that good or bad? It's what it is.
What it is.
Yeah.
But yet the growth has now moved out to the edges. So now we have this infill that's happening. I'm going to give a particular scenario, and you talked about this earlier. City Council just had a developer propose a project in a little bit of the town core. It was on 3.5 acres, and initially they came in with a 44-unit townhome plan. 5 feet driveways, very, very dense.
Doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make sense. Can't park an SUV or a truck.
And so question number one, where the vehicle's being stored, and there should never, ever, ever, the higher density you go, there should never be a line of garages on a public way.
And that's exactly what it was. But here's what was interesting. So the developer came in and said, this is what I need to make this pencil. They're always going to ask for more.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of the beast. Started out at 44. In conversation with council, they got it down to 29. Then in some modifications, it was to 26. And I want to give a shout out to those neighbors in that meeting that came out and talked about code. And they talked about the difference between R1 and R2, and recognizing that, look, we recognize that R2 is in our vicinity, but this is too much. We know that there's an affordability issue in our valley, and we recognize that our children need to have a place that they can call home, but there's not enough parking. The driveways are too short. You're putting too many people in a small area. And look at this open space that you've allowed for a small park. But really, what's the values?
There's no value in that.
And so I think that, for me, was such an illustration of what we're dealing with right now. You're trying to find a solution in our community.
You can zone it to this is why people wanted to go to form-based codes, is because if you do a form-based code rather than just a land use code, then you begin to regulate the means, methods, and ways in which the building is organized and arranged as it relates to both the private and public realm. And if you don't get those things right, and I'll just tell you, and I'm going to offend a ton of people by saying this, I've only worked with a few developers who even understand the concept. Most just understand pencils and numbers.
Yeah.
And
it's also about the profit.
And it's
that's their job.
But it isn't all about the profit in all reality. It's about, they want to do something cool. And the reality is they're do something cool because things that are new are cool.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, look at this cool thing we did. Like, wow, new apartment. But the reality is like timelessness. No, it doesn't have that. And so the arrangement of the parts and pieces has more to do with the form than it does with the use. And if you cannot figure out how to govern the form and the relationship of parts and pieces to each other, then it will be screwed up 100% of the time, because the critical analysis you need to actually deliver a beautiful product, that level of knowledge is concentrated in so few people on this planet that no one can deliver it. A civil engineer, love you guys, I appreciate working with you, but you can't deliver it because you're dealing with an engineering code of standard street widths and stuff and trying to maximize, like, you're in the most logical, scientific, like, number-driven thing there is. Cities are a work of art, not an engineering exercise. If you want a good city, you have to think of it as a work of art and a compositional theme before you think of it as an engineering exercise.
But there's that balance. You've got to have roads that are wide enough for snow removal.
Yeah.
But if you have them too wide, then you've increased speed. If you have them too narrow, then you can't park on them. And now you've got safety issues.
Yeah. And so defining those streets is super critical. And you begin to, I say this to everybody, like when I'm designing your houses, I can help govern behavior by how I design a thing. I can force you into actually behaving a particular way just by how I design a space. Because human nature will just naturally go towards a certain way based on how a space functions. And the same goes for all our outdoor spaces, because they're still spaces.
Yeah. I mean, you look at New York City and Central Park, all that density, they valued Central Park. It's their recreation, open space.
And that's a privately owned thing, I think.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, I have a question for you. When is density okay?
When it's beautiful.
What does that mean?
You go back to listen to our other podcast, and the reality is, I'm with the other podcasts that I do and other things. We discuss all those things. But if we just boil it down to some very simple things based on traditional architectural principles, meaning a lot of this will make sense. For order through visual hierarchy. And so when you generate order within a thing, you think about original building or types. And so typologies and that type of stuff.
It's a variety of housing.
But it's a variety of housing in a way that you have an infinite variety of expression, meaning that, and this is one of the biggest problems when you talk about cookie cutter. And so everyone hates cookie cutter. I hate cookie cutter. But the crazy thing is when you go to some historic neighborhoods, a 5-bay colonial, and you go all through New England, there's millions of them. However, what makes every single one of them different? The details. You're a woman, I'm a man. It's like,
it's a craftsmanship.
Yeah, I'm a dude. It's the details. My eyebrows look different than your eyebrows. My eyes, these proportions, general proportions are the same. The specific proportions are slightly different. And the specificity or the differentiation you get in the infinite variety of expression of those details is where you get the true beauty. And so you can have the exact same facade go on and on, but if you change the details properly proportioned, it will be fine. It's not change material, it's change the details. But the details are what cost the money. And that's why it's hard. It's easy to go from, hey, we'll do thin brick here, and then we'll do siding here, and then but we don't put any detail in it. No, that's not what makes it beautiful. It's the expression, the detail. And if we get closer to nature, if our tangible experience with architecture is natural, the better it's going to be. And if those natural materials are installed in a way that reflects their natural properties, it's just going to be beautiful. For instance, if you build out of stone and it's a full stone wall, how wide can your opening be with any sort of lintel that you put above an opening? Not very wide.
Yeah.
You are very limited to the width of your opening, right? And so if you look at your natural material, the openings that you do, and you pretend that it's this is why I say, I go back to before technology, before a car. If I can design stuff in a way as if this stuff was load-bearing masonry, or if it was in a traditional language, then even though it's not, and it's still just an application on a facade, then it will just have one more level of depth and authenticity that will just feel more right.
But that also feels expensive.
It feels expensive, and it is more expensive. And my mission, my goal is to try to figure out how to do it so it isn't expensive. Because the reality is, architecture, beautiful architecture, should be reserved for the wealthy. Period. It should be for everyone. If you go to New Orleans, all those little shotgun houses, absolutely beautiful. And that was for very standard, normal people. And they're all the old historic architecture, because those guys were the craftsmen who were actually the bricklayers, masons, they built their own houses just as beautiful as their clients and the patrons and the wealthy. And so everyone got to participate in beauty. Because I was poor, didn't mean that I was left out. And so when it comes to these zoning things, delivering these things, I really do believe that when you look at all new developments, it's like there should be a core. It shouldn't just be all R1 or all this. But just going back to your example of I've got 3 acres and I want to do this. It's like, okay, well, let's divide it up into townhomes, or and we'll just call it joined housing. Let's not call it townhomes. Let's just call it joined housing. It's like, all right, what does that look like? It could actually look like a mansion and one large house. All the garages are in the back. A single driveway, not 10 driveways. A single driveway that goes in the back, that where all the garages are hidden. And then there's a primary residence on the front, and then you have secondary residences that goes down. And the rents will be different. The pricing will be different. But that's the problem of gaining any sort of scaling. Oh my gosh, what's the word? All of you economic guys know exactly what I'm talking about. It's efficiency, scale of efficiency.
The cost of goods.
That's the cost of goods and everything, because it's like you'll have different units, and so you're not doing a replication. And the great thing that Henry Ford and McDonald's delivered us was cheap stuff because of the assembly line. But guess what? You weren't built on an assembly line. I wasn't, and our city shouldn't be either.
Well, and what was interesting about this particular development and the zoning that is there allows for 6 cottage homes. And so for a developer to come in and start at 44, get it knocked down to 26, and eventually 3 no votes, send him back, you know what? We're not going to change the zoning. We understand that we need affordable housing, but this is not.
This isn't it. And so it's like, all right, is it cottages or is it something else? And you just have to be more creative. And that's the biggest problem, is just we're so uncreative. It's like, when is the last time this developer actually went and critically evaluated Alexandria, Charleston, Savannah, Georgia, new stuff going in the Panhandle in Florida? It's like, have you traveled to these places? Have you actually looked at the housing types, of building types, the composition of building types, the layouts of these buildings, how you get in and out of them, the relationship to the street, the fronts and the backs, how you define the fronts and the backs, and what the actual details that matter, what don't matter. It's like, if you haven't done a critical analysis of all those types of things, then you're not worthy to actually be coming in here and do a development. And I'm serious on that.
One of the things that I think is important that we can't do, because we're not building this community in one fell swoop, we're having to do it piece by piece, is we don't have the ability.
I love piece by piece, by the way, because it's much more organic.
It is organic. But the problem with that is we can't put the pieces together. If we could put this like a Lego set, and we can say, look, we want all the density downtown. We want the 5 acres to be on the edges. We want the 1 acre in the middle. We want to be able to just, here's the expensive to affordability in the middle.
Right. It's kind of bell curve in terms of density, right? It's like goes up and goes down. Now the crazy thing is that bell curve of density should exist in a quarter-mile radius or a half-mile radius, according to walkability science, as it were.
But there's this big concern that if we build downtown, we're going to erase our historic nature of the Heber Valley, because we didn't have 3 or 4-story buildings down.
Yeah. So what do? It's like, well, just build new downtowns. You annexed half the mountain. All right. So what do? Require the same sort of grid pattern, the same sort of like development patterns that it would have existed in the 1800s, and that's what you do.
But what we're seeing instead is villages being built on the outskirts of town while our downtown is suffering.
Yeah. And so the downtown won't suffer if you do this type of development. What will thrive will thrive. And once again, you cannot force
the market
is going to determine all this stuff. And honestly, there's part of me who I'm just like, man, if I was rich enough, I didn't be super cool to live down here. I'd just buy 3 of these old homes, put them together, and build a big giant mansion. That'd be sweet.
But why isn't that happening? So
because culture.
Okay.
It's just culture. That's why. All of us know a certain thing. All of us have a cultural expectation of buildable deliverables in our head. Just what we've experienced. And everything we've experienced is modern zoning, subdivision stuff.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is all of us recognize we don't like it.
Right.
But we have no idea. And we know that we like Charleston. But we don't know how to deliver that. And it can't be just done. It cannot be done and executed by a land use code. Cannot be done.
Why not?
Because there aren't enough talented people to execute it. You have to have an architect capable of executing it, and a builder capable, and a developer who's committed to it. And there aren't enough talented people to do it.
But my other question is, we have multiple municipalities that are doing things differently, and we're not really communicating with each other. So I'm going to give you an example. Midway, all of a sudden, has had this uprising of downtown improvements, business owners that are coming in and are investing in the downtown. We had to sacrifice an old historic farmhouse. Mm-hmm. But what we're seeing happening is this, what feels like organic movement towards, and I say that a little bit tongue in cheek because we see this organic movement of Midway's town square becoming the true center of Midway, the build out happening around it, and this changeover of residential to commercial. And there's this pushback from the locals saying, what have you done to my quaint little quiet Midway?
And I get it. I get it. I get it. Change is inevitable. The passage of time is inevitable. We have children.
You got really serious all of a sudden.
Well, because it is serious. And when we try to hang on to a thing like, I just went to Disneyland with our little 3-year-old grandson, and it was the most magical experience I've ever had in my life. I'm like, not only I hate Disneyland, but we went and I saw through a 3-year-old's hike for the very first time. I'm like, this is the happiest place on earth. It was the most happy I ever been because of this little boy. And it's like, if I could bottle that, just capture it, just keep it there. It's like, I want to keep Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden.
But don't you think that's why people are coming here?
Because it feels like a Garden of Eden and feels like a place of happiness. It's like, well, what are the things that feel like that? And the reality is, when you begin to look at the place that feel like that, it is a function of the architecture, period, end of story. It's a function of the urban design and the architecture.
It's people around it, though. It's giving a place to gather.
Yeah. You're creating spaces to gather, and people like to gather in beautiful spaces. Yeah. It's like, if I put concrete walls around you or glass walls around you, is that what you want to gather? Or do you want to gather around stone walls that actually have character in it? Tell me which one. Why aren't you?
Fire in the middle.
As long as there's a fire in the middle or some glows, right? And so, but it goes back to our Walmart example. Are you going to walk in the Walmart parking lot just for a walk because it's so beautiful? No, you're going to go walk down a neighborhood street or somewhere else that has a little bit more charm because there's some visual sensitivities that you are naturally inclined towards, that you want to have your body respond to.
Do you think it's too late?
You cannot capture in a bottle a time. That time is now gone.
And what's interesting to me is, especially through several social media community pages, for them, it's the 1940s or the 50s or the 60s. For me, it's the 80s.
Yeah.
But for our children, what we have right now, they love.
Yeah. And this experience, right? And so you can have what I call subjective beauty and objective beauty. Objective beauty actually goes into fundamental principles of design, compositional things. And nature has objective beauty. And there is degrees of beauty within beauty. right? And so we can all agree that Hawaii and the oh my gosh, the island on the furthest north, Kauai.
Oh, boy.
That is just
The Garden Island.
the Garden Island.
Yeah.
There's a reason it's called the Garden Island because it is the most objectively beautiful. However, the Big Island is also objectively beautiful, but there is beauty on a scale within objective beauty. And so nature just has it embedded within her because it was designed, compositionally designed. And then when we replace that with ugliness, we've replaced objective beauty with ugliness. Now, if you look at
like, bring it back to Heber Valley.
yeah, here's how it comes back. The stuff made of stone from the 1800s, City Hall right now, objectively beautiful. The Walmart, objectively not beautiful. However, if I have enough experience with Walmart and I build a ton of good memories there, and it's where I spend time with my mom and my whatever, and it's like that's gonna be beautiful to me because I have a sentimental relationship to it, and so I love it because of that. And so we're going to come to a point in time where there's going to be so much sentimental attachment to things that are ugly that we will call them beautiful and we want to preserve them. That
Are you calling out the split level 1970s?
Yes, I'm calling out split level 1970s. That is what I grew up in, and it's like I have a sentimental attachment to those homes because I grew up in them, but they're objectively ugly.
But how do we make sure that moving forward, what we're designing, what we're building, what we're creating
goes.
But that ship has failed.
It failed and sailed. But and the reason that it failed and sailed last time is because they went one step too far. It's like if you would have just kept your Ford-based code relegated to the higher density stuff, meaning
downtown,
and like I said earlier, the closer your homes are together, the more regulations there need to be because you're doing a street composition and not an individual building composition. The wider your homes are apart, it's like you do whatever you want because it's not a full street composition.
But it's too late. I feel like a lot of people are saying that ship has sailed. It's too late for Heber. It's ruined this Heber Valley, the growth. It's too late.
Do you know when it's too late? You can replace houses, you can replace buildings, you can remodel. I've done tons of remodels. And the thing you want to get right first is the street grid. If you get the street grid right, then you have an infinite amount of time and variety over generation after generation to continue to improve it and reflect the needs of that particular generation.
And I think it's important to understand that the variety in housing, while it's different, and I think that's what a lot of people are pushing back against. We talk about apartments, condos, townhomes, twin homes. This community was single family homes.
Oh yeah, it's branches.
For 100 years.
Yeah.
So when we see the density, when we see what's happened at Jordanelle Ridge, the birdhouses that you see at Coyote Ridge, there's this pushback that this isn't the Heber that I grew up in.
Yeah, it isn't the Heber you grew up in. Congratulations. And guess what? I don't like it either. I really don't.
But yet the variety of the housing is allowing for a variety of people. And that's the thing that
how do you define variety of housing? Are you defining it in terms of aesthetics or are you defining it in terms of size and price?
Size and price. So condos.
Size and price. Do you know what the easiest way to actually get a variety of size and price in is just make every single lot a duplex lot. And so do it. And because all the infrastructure is already there and everyone will hate this idea. But if go ahead and let everyone do a mother-in-law apartment in their back on a detached garage. It's like, boom. Now you've just doubled everything. You could prevent the stuff that's happening now, and everyone has an opportunity to put something that they have control over on their own property to help with some of this affordable housing.
Well, ironically, Heber City just did that. They just revised their code.
Did they really?
Yes. Yes, they did in downtown.
Oh, I'm seeing it everywhere.
I know. But so in the downtown historic core, you can now flag lots. They've got multiple lots, mansion homes, twin homes, duplexes.
And all of this, unfortunately, does have to go back to form.
Yeah.
It goes back to design and to form and not just a land use.
I feel like we've gone full circle, but I want to end with two things. Missing middle is a housing term that seems to be thrown out a lot because basically they're saying, look, we have apartments. We've got older homes, but we don't have homes for middle income families.
Right. And here's the sad part about it. Let's talk about this. I finish with it because I've got kids in the same scenario, exact same scenario. When we were kids growing up, your first house, you could actually still buy a half-acre lot or something, a narrow lot that was pretty deep, and you can raise a family in that particular house forever. Yeah. And so it was land. You could get land with a small house, lots of land with a small house, not a big house on a tiny plot of land. Right. It's an inversion that we now have because land prices have skyrocketed. And that is a pure function of the desirability of the valley. Guess what? How much you could buy a piece of land in the middle of Wyoming for? Almost free.
But is there an opportunity to create a missing middle?
Yes, there's an opportunity to create a missing middle, but it's going to be a lot more expensive than what you may want. It may not be exactly what you want, but you can get creative to get something that approximates a desirable living experience. But what you have to do is you have to put higher density housing more proximate to public parks,
city cores,
the city cores and public parks, because you have to if you're going to raise children in a missing middle type of house in a let's say a 2,000 or less square foot home, you have to be proximate enough to a park so that you can get out of the house, get your kids out to the park, and there's somewhere where kids can go. And so there's an open space requirement that has to be met in order to make that happen. There's a design requirement to make it attractive. And so it really has to do with building type. And you can have an 8-plex within a single building, which I'd call an apartment complex or a condo complex, that looks like a single family residence.
Right. They call them mansion homes.
A mansion home, yeah. Right? And there used to be mansion homes. They divided up into all of those. Mm-hmm. And then what's interesting about it is if time changes, then you can claim it all back and turn it into a full mansion home if the neighborhood becomes that desirable. That's what we call gentrification.
And we've seen that with the Harvard, Yale
yes.
and Solid.
Yes. And so you'll have mansion home divided up into apartments, go back into a mansion home. And that's the cycle. That's when you know you did it right, is you're recycling the exact same building over generations, over 100 or 200 years, and it just fluctuates based on the economic need.
Yeah. I will tell you, my hope is that we value Old Town. We value Heber Old Town. We value Midway Old Town. We preserve the values of Charleston and Wallsburg and Daniel, because they each represent different types of housing.
Yeah.
And a way that people want to live. People live in Wallsburg for a reason.
Yeah.
People have come to Charleston for a reason. They want to live or land. Midway, you're developing beautiful homes of natural product because Midway has become that upper echelon.
Yeah.
And then I think we're seeing that balance on the other side, on the east side. You have Red Ledges and Blue Sage and Lake Air Farms. So I feel like if we looked at the valley as a whole instead of individually, we've actually created an amazing community with a variety of housing and a variety of people. And what I think is important that people understand is the density that is coming. Jordan L. Ridge, Coyote Ridge, it's allowing people to stay in the valley.
Yeah.
It's what I have seen and met these people that have lived there. It's allowing for a divorcee, a widow, a young couple that want to start their kids here.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of people coming back, retirees that are able to live here because the variety of housing gives them different price points and different opportunities. And I think it's important, even though we don't like the growth, that we see that growth is giving balance to our community.
Once again, you can't stop it. The only way to stop it is completely destroy your economy and make it so undesirable to live here. There's no growth. And that's called Detroit.
It's true. Okay, as we wrap up, Clayton, the last question, and I've been thinking about this because you've created some beautiful homes. It's been fun to watch your career really explode over the last 10 years, I would say. What design choices today are going to matter 20 to 50 years from now?
We're timeless. It all goes back to the word timeless, the fundamental principles that actually generate timeless composition. Period. That's it. And so the most important thing to do is if you can build your primary facades, your primary elevations, the street front, the public facing one. So if you have a quarter lot, you have two fronts. You don't have one front, you have two fronts, and that both sides have to be properly composed. If you can actually utilize natural materials on those in a way, in the traditional way they should be used, and think about materials in terms of primary material, secondary material, and tertiary material. So you don't just mix materials to be fun. You think in terms of primary volumes, primary materials on those primary volumes. That's what the house was composed of, whether it be wood, siding, or brick, or stone. And then all of your architectural details, you have an opportunity to change the material because you're beginning to accentuate architectural features. And these are compositional principles. And then if you can put and embed order into it, meaning that your openings on your windows and your doors and all that type of stuff, they're not going to be super wide because you can't actually do wide openings. However, we do it, and I do it I've designed in all of these subdivisions we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And I design modern homes. And I think I design really nice modern homes. And I take these principles and I embed them in the modern homes so that they have a little bit more timelessness to it. And so it really is materiality first, order, local symmetry second, really good, traditionally appropriate and properly proportioned details that aren't off the shelf. And that will give, if you're gonna, that will make things more more timeless. When I do remodels on a house prior to 1920, we don't destroy the house. We don't tear it down. We actually just do add-ons to the back, and we just repaint, fix up.
I've seen a couple of holiday homes that you've done that too.
Yeah. Beautiful. And then what we do on 1950s houses is like, the bones are actually still pretty good. We do add-ons, finishes, reconfigure windows because they were too wide. We do some things, but we don't fully tear down the house yet. Once we get to the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, it's like, can't do anything, just tear the house down.
Yeah.
Let's rebuild.
What excites you most about the future of architecture and community building?
Oh, wow. I think there's a movement in architecture, not within the education, not within the schools, but within the the groundswell of what's coming up. It's like we want more authentic. We've been bombarded with so much plastic, fake food, inorganic stuff, social media that just isn't reality. That we want something real, authentic and real. And architecture is a huge part of that because it's our experience in the real.
Yeah.
Right? It's where we make these conversations. It's where we have these relationships. It's where we develop real relationships, is in real spaces and real buildings. And as we surround ourselves with better architecture, more natural materials, we can, I think, generate more authentic living experiences.
And it brings people together.
And it brings people, you create
That
places
is
that bring people
community
together. That's community building. When we're in our isolation pods, meaning our cars, and our isolation houses, meaning, and there's no community building. It's like, I love going to the park on the fair days and stuff. It's like tons of people. You get to know people. The kids are playing with other kids, and you just get to know people. And community building generally, I think there's when I went to school, there was only one architecture school on the planet that taught traditional classical architecture. Now there are 5. And one of my classmates is leading a UBU's program right now. So if anyone's out there interested in architecture, go to UBU School of Architecture because they're teaching traditional neighborhood design, traditional architecture, led by one of the best, a good friend of mine, Paul Watson. And what I'm trying to do personally is I'm trying to set up an online community that can span the planet called the Residential Design Academy. And we're just barely starting it, where we can have these conversations that you and I are having. It's like, how do we make this better? What I've eaten McDonald's too much in my life, and I'd like to get to a carrot that came right out of my garden. And it's like, why am I feeling gross? It's because we just didn't put the right stuff in.
Yeah.
Garbage in, garbage out. And how do we understand fundamental compositional principles in a way that we can create a more beautiful world?
I love it. Clayton, thank you for sharing your insight. We could talk for a long time, but we're going to wrap it up. His experiences, this conversation really does help us better understand how architecture isn't just about buildings, it's about people and place and the legacy we leave behind. So to our listeners, thank you for joining us. And thank you if you joined for the second part. I think it was really valuable to really understand what's happening in our community, the good, the bad, the ugly, but most of all, the beautiful. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to share it, subscribe, and continue the conversation. And let's keep talking about how our community can improve thoughtfully, beautifully, and with intention. So Rachel Kahler with Community Alliance for Main Street, Clayton Vance with Clayton Vance
Architecture.
Architecture. Yep. Thanks so much and have a great day.